All right. Good afternoon, listeners. You're listening to Lament of Hope blog and podcast. I'm super excited today. I'm speaking with Jackie Evancho. Many of you know her. I mean, she's a singer, she's a songwriter. She started her career out when she was really, really young, singing opera and then moving into classical crossover, and now is really branching out into some really different genres in her music. Um, and has recently come out with a new album or new EP, Sola. Jackie, before we start, because I know you interviewed a ton, I
Mhm.
kind of wanted to make this a little fun. What kind of animal do you think your personality is most like?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, and I don't mean to like be all full of myself or anything, but I would say, because I think my whole family is like this, a wolf, because we're all very fiercely loyal, but we're also very loving to each other. And we like to stay together. We're kind of like a pack. I mean, we're feisty when we have to be. I know it's hard to believe with me, but we are.
Well, no, it's not because your music from the album EP that I've been listening to, Sola. First of all, what does Sola mean? Did you pick the name for a certain reason?
Yeah, so Sola means it's actually, I took a single piece of this incantation that I'd heard of where it's sola, sola, sola is the way it goes. And it means that you're basically letting go of something from the past that you were very fond of. Um, you're fully letting go and moving into a new chapter. You're relinquishing that piece of you into the past. And that's
Okay.
basically what this EP is. So I thought it was perfect.
The music is, I find, I mean, it's raw. It's
Mhm.
raw and it's also very, at points, sad
Mhm.
and um very like what's the word I'm looking for? Stream of consciousness. Like you're really thinking through kind of we're exploring your mind and these different stories. I wanted to ask you because the ones I loved, the ones that really stood out to me were Consequences, the last song, as well as um I've got it right here. Broken Things.
Mhm.
Broken Things too is just like it's true that we're very broken people, and it was just I wanted to ask you like these songs because is this your first, probably not your first time, but this whole EP is your music, right? You wrote it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what is your vision for it, and especially for like Broken Things Consequences, which have a more sad feel?
Mhm.
Um, did you take that from personal experience, or are you trying to, where you were trying to relate to like our generation that's particularly going through a lot of mental health struggles? Um, I feel like our generation in particular as well has faced a lot more pressures societally in and spiritually, emotionally, I think, than other generations. I don't know. But
Mhm.
based on the social media and all the pressures that we have, were you trying to express that in the album? Like, what's the story behind these songs?
Um, they're all kind of my own experiences, but they're ones that I knew were going to be relatable to our generation. And the thing that you're right, there's a lot of stuff that I think is on us, maybe more so than previous generations. I think
Yeah,
generational trauma is a thing, and I've experienced that because my parents at least, they don't really deal with it. They just push through and through and don't realize the ways that it affects us.
yeah,
But I feel like it was important for me to, honestly, it was during COVID. I was just very sick and tired of pretending to be 10 years old still, because I'm 24 now and I've experienced a lot of things and I've kept a lot hidden. And I was just fed up, really.
hmm,
I wrote Consequences when I was 15. And, I think everybody at that age starts to really deal with things. We're changing, hormones are changing.
Yeah.
but I'd had a lot of experiences that a lot of 15-year-olds hadn't experienced yet. And I was just going through a very rough period in my life, and that was my outlet, was writing and songwriting. That's when my issues with mental illness and eating disorders really kind of started to take full effect. And that was like the beginning of my journey of healing at the same time. I'm
Mm,
spiraling, but I'm trying to get out of it as I'm falling. So, yeah, and then broken things, it's definitely more relatable, I think, to our generation just because of a lot of things that we are doing to ourselves and to each other, especially
yeah.
socially. So, I wrote that when I'd kind of first experienced, my first run-in with a situation similar to that. Yeah.
What um what is your hope with the album? Because I know for you, there must be also for you, there is this vulnerability out there. And so you're probably thinking, I don't know if you've thought this, but like your fan base that you've had since you were young, the music is now different. And
hmm
so how your fans are going to respond. Also, you getting into a genre that what kind of made you unique when you started was this really young person who had this big voice. And now you are a young person with a beautiful voice getting into, more of pop indie music that has a lot of people in it like you. So,
hmm
do you find that is that intimidating at all? Or are you just like, I am so done though with the past that I'm ready for all the complications or whatever happens with this new music?
Um, I am intimidated to a degree or nervous, because this was kind of my moment in life where I said, I have to just do and give all that I can give to what I feel is calling me.
Yeah,
And it's always been music, it's always been art, but it just it developed as I did, and I'm developing and learning about all these things that I like, and I'm changing, but my persona isn't. And that's what I mean when I say I'm not 10 years old anymore. And I was terrified that if I started to be more authentic to my 24-year-old self, that the people who fell in love with me when I was 10 would reject that form of me. And it was a paralyzing frame of mind, I think. And once I broke out of that, because I was just fed up, once I broke out of that, it was kind of like, I'm just gonna throw it all out there. I'm gonna do my best. I'm going to songwrite because I think that is something that I'm fond of and may be good at. I think I'm good at it. And
yeah,
if it's not me singing them, that's fine, but it's gonna be music that I'm doing for the rest of my life in some capacity.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I kind of just was like giving up the fears that I've had because they were very, very limiting.
What has the reaction been so far, you think? Has it exceeded your expectations, or are you finding that you're still hoping that it was going to get more traction, or for you, are you like, this is actually better than I thought it was going to turn out to be by people's
It
reception?
was definitely better than I thought it was gonna be. It's definitely gained more traction than I thought it would. Of course, it's a challenge though to be not only changing your sound as an artist, but also changing the persona of a child star to an adult. There's a
Yeah,
challenge in that. But I mean, it's a lot better than I thought. Of course, I have like 3% of the fans, or old fans at least, who are saying that like Satan's taken hold, you're being forced to be this thing because of the industry, and it's just it doesn't even bother me anymore, those kinds of things. I just grew up with it, so it's like, you know, I don't care.
when was the first time you actually had something very hurtful that a fan said when you were younger that stuck with you, and then from there you kind of learned to get harder skin? Because I mean, I've heard you have to have pretty hard skin to be in entertainment because you're getting rejected a lot. You're not everyone likes you. You're kind of, you're doing what you think you're supposed to be doing, and not everybody's going to accept or like that. Do you remember a time when you're when someone said something and those words were just so cutting and they stuck with you? I mean, I would think especially when you were younger and like you were
Mhm.
first starting this, you were excited. I mean, it must have been really hard to hear something really, rude.
Honestly, my upbringing before I started singing wasn't very like easy either.
Okay.
So I was very familiar with tough situations. And something that my mom had instilled in me growing up was, people are going to be hateful. You're out there for everyone to see. Most of the time when they're hateful, it's because there's something they don't like about themselves and they take that out on you. So once I started being more in the public eye, that always resonated with me and comforted me. But when people started saying things about my appearance, that's when it really started to be like bothersome to me. Because when people were like, "Oh, she sounds terrible," it never hit me because I knew that they were just
Yeah.
one, I knew that people don't, not everyone's gonna love me, and also, you know, that's their opinion. But there's a lot of people that don't have that opinion. When people started saying things like, "She has a big nose," or "She's getting a little chubby since she was a kid," stuff like that really started to bug me. And I just eventually, I guess, bullied myself more than they did, and then what they said didn't bother me anymore.
Hmm. And I know you struggled with, um, it was anorexia, right? That you
Mhm.
struggled with. And like, what do you now coming out of that to some extent, what are you most comfortable in? Like, what do you like to look like? If you didn't have anybody's opinion on what you needed to look like or anything, what are you most comfortable in and you like and you enjoy and you think you look good in?
Mhm. Well, it's a day-to-day thing, honestly. I mean, aesthetically, I'm a big fan of like, I would say maybe like minimalist goth almost, because I wear a lot of black and I've always liked that color.
Yeah.
Um, but there's also a little grunge in there. That's the stuff that I feel most comfortable in. I get so much crap for wearing black from everyone around me. And it's just like, I mean, I still get people trying to control me and what I look like. I'm at a point in my life where I am able to tell them I'm going to wear what I want to wear. But um, when I wear what I want to wear, I feel like somebody could come up to me on the street and start something with me, and I wouldn't break down in a ball and cry. I just feel stronger. Um, Whereas before, I was so terrified of everything,
Yeah.
like any form of confrontation, any form of scolding, or just anything like that. I'd break down and cry so easily. I'm very sensitive like that, but yeah, some days I just feel like so insecure about myself and how I look that I can only manage to put on a sweatshirt. It's a day-to-day thing.
How do you find support with it?
Honestly, I have to find it in myself, and it's very hard.
Hmm.
When you're dealing with something like an eating disorder for so long, it reaches a point, at least for me, where the people around me who love me didn't know what else to do. And so the best they can do is, keep an eye on you and your appearance. And if it gets to be, in their opinion, too severe, they say something. But other than that, I'm a full-grown adult and I live by myself. There's not much that they can do to stop those behaviors.
Yeah.
It's up to me. It really is up to me to just support myself, know when I should call somebody and ask for their support as well, and just be realistic with myself.
Yeah.
That's my way.
What does a hard day look like for you?
Um, a lot of restriction, and then a lot of like a lot of being busy. And it's not just a hard day eating wise, it's just mentally. I would say these days being anxious is more of a problem than being sad, but they all kind of coexist. And
Yeah.
I'm never sitting still for very long. So I'm always doing things, and then the eating chirps in my ear and says, "See, it's good that you're doing this because you're burning all these calories and you know, you're not even thinking about it because you're so distracted by what you're doing."
Yeah.
They all team up against me and it can be really challenging. And that's why I love music so much because that's what really quiets it. I'm able to sit for hours and do music. I'm able to just focus on that
Mm.
and yeah, takes me away from it all.
Do you have a favorite song from the new EP? I was saying what you're saying sounds like Behind My Eyes, like if almost if as if, if you guys could be me, this is what it's like.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, each song to me is special in their own way. But one of my all-time favorites that I wrote is Smoking Gun because that one I wrote, it
It has
flew out of
such a
me.
different sound, too. Yeah,
Yeah, it happened at a point where I was actually going through what I wrote about, and it was such a release, and it came like within an hour, the song was done. And the
wow.
rest was just composition, Uh, and when I heard it, it was really the first song that I heard where I was very confident in it enough to be like, I should record this, or at least somebody. I feel like it has a lot to say. So yeah, that's one of my all-time favorites.
Is it, and when you're talking about you going through it, was it like with a like romantic relationship you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah, it was a bad
Have you
part.
have you had a positive, because I know for me growing up, especially like my first relationship was terrible, was very, really rough. There were good parts, but there were some really hard parts.
Mhm.
Um, have you found a relationship, a romantic relationship that you have found positive and that helps you grow? Or for you, like, because you're still really young, has it been like really rough and providing a lot of material for your music?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I'm currently in a relationship and it's been a little over a year, so it's fairly new still, but I think I have a tendency, and not with this partner specifically, but I have a tendency to self-sabotage sometimes. And
I get
so
that.
I gravitate towards certain people that I think are wonderful. There's a lot of love bombing sometimes. And then all of a sudden, I'm hooked, and all these little problems, they start popping up, and then they get worse and worse and worse, mainly with who I wrote Smoking Gun about. Um, that one really destroyed me, I think. And the relationship I'm in now has been very healing from that relationship. But there's, of course, the challenges. It's about growing
Yeah,
together for me that I think is important.
yeah,
So as long as we're trying and trying to heal ourselves, I think that it's a safe relationship, like a good, better than being with someone that I'm self-sabotaging with.
yeah. Do you mean that the person also is struggling with unhealthy tendencies, and so you're both at the same time? Is that what you mean? Or is the self-sabotage like you see a really great person and then you're the one who kind of like ends it because of your behavior?
That has happened, but I just mean more so like for me, self-sabotaging by dating them would be seeing all of these red flags and just ignoring them, believing
Okay.
the classic, oh, I can fix them, you know?
Okay, I
Um,
see.
yeah. But what I mean about the healthy relationship is, I mean, you're not going into it looking for problems that they may
Yeah.
have. But once you realize that they do, and once they realize they do, you work together as a team, to show each other the love and the support and to not make sure, but hope that they are motivated to heal themselves as much as you are to heal yourself.
Yeah.
I don't want there to be a codependent situation where, I can only heal if they are there supporting me and vice versa. It's important to have that motivation in yourself.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
do you what do you find hardest about being young? Like, I mean, on top of it, you're an entertainer. So
Mhm.
you've got a whole bunch of pressure there that's totally unrelated to being young. That's just its own stuff. But, because I see your heart for wanting to speak to this generation, kind of trying to relate and be like, yeah, I get it. I'm not the 10-year-old who started out. I understand. I've been experiencing all these things you guys are going through, wanting to be able to articulate that. And be real with people so that you can see that this is who I am and this is what it's important to me.
Mhm.
Um, what do you find hardest about being young now in the time we live in?
Mm. For me, I think there's two big things. Limiting myself is a big one because of fear. Um, and I think
Mm,
a lot of us are so afraid of what life can be in a
mm,
negative way that we're afraid to take the chance, especially if our parents didn't take that path. It's something I see a lot in my personal life. A lot of people are just afraid to take their own path. They want to take the one that's been paved before them by,
okay.
their parents or people that they know. And so it's really scary for them to sort of step out of it. I got lucky because I was doing this since I was little, so I grew up in it. And another one would be emotional connection. I feel, struggle so much with genuine emotional connection because of social media and,
Mm,
all of these things that are numbing our ability to emotionally connect with each other.
yeah.
I run into that a lot too. I'm somebody that likes to stay off my phone, and then I get yelled at for not replying to texts and this and that. And so I kind of love to sit outside and look at nature and see things and think about them deeply.
Mm,
The classic brooding artist. But a lot of people that I know, at least, would rather be inside playing video games and, watching movies instead of taking that walk outside and feeling the air and all that stuff. It's hard because technology is fairly new to us, and so we're enamored by it. I just feel it's
yeah.
important to stay in touch with the stuff that was before it too.
Well, I was gonna say, you were mentioning how with your anxiety you like to be busy.
Mhm.
And then music is when your anxiety stops and you can kind of not think about it. Do you find it hard to like, because one thing I find hard is like if I sit or if I walk, I just think about all the things that I worry about because I don't have anything to distract me.
Mhm.
Do you find that hard too? Or for you, like walking, being outside, like you find that the same sort of balming healing as the music?
Well, if I anytime I'm walking or doing stuff like that, there's music playing. And it's
Okay.
like the walking adds to the bliss of it.
Yeah.
Music surrounds me in so many ways. I have to like implement it in everything. But art in general, I mean, painting or sewing or, crafting things, all of that has the same effect as music, but music is the one that really, really does it the most.
Do you think you'll like paint a cover for one of your songs that comes out? Like if you're into painting, do you think you might do like the cover art?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I almost did it with my last album, the Joni Mitchell one, Carousel of Time. I painted a self-portrait because Joni Mitchell does that with all of her albums.
Yeah.
And they ended up saying that it's not that it was a bad painting, but they just wanted an official picture. And I was so disappointed because I spent weeks on this thing and I was so proud of it. I still am. They ended up putting it on like an insert or something of the CD, but
You're like,
I
that's not the same.
yes, yes. And so I'm determined for that to be something that does happen.
Do you have it there that people can see?
Yeah, it's hanging right here. Do you want me to grab it?
Yeah, go ahead. Let us
Okay.
see it.
Oh no. It's a little bigger, but like,
Is that you?
yeah, it was, um, it's like
It's
hard to
no, it's beautiful.
thank you. But yeah, um, I was always somebody that painted.
Wow. I mean, I didn't really know that about you. I don't know. Have you ever really brought that out that much?
Here and there, not all that much. I mean, on social media, I'll be like, look what I drew or look what I painted, but I've never really come out with it.
So, Jackie, what would be like if you could if you could make all the decisions on something, what kind of album would you like to release? Like, I know Sola. Do you find Sola to be like the pinnacle of what you really wanted to do? Or is there like a goal that you have with your music that you're like, one day I really want it to look like this, and I want the reaction to be, for me, like this is what would feel like fulfill my musical journey kind of thing?
Hmm. Honestly, Sola is what I want musically to be doing because there's not really a specific genre on there. It goes a little bit in a few different directions.
Yeah.
And and that's what I love about it. I'd hope that my career could be doing things like that, just whatever comes out of me. Typically, it's more of like alternative pop or alternative rock indie kind of thing. But the reaction that I'd love to have is sort of like when you have hardcore fan bases for like heavy metal music, because believe it or not, I do listen to that. And I go to those shows and, I'll avoid the mosh pit, but, you see these fans go crazy. They are so in love and admire the artist. And um, it's like a family in there, and everyone's kind of looking out for each other for the most part. And I'd love to have that and just be on that stage and feel free and be able to say whatever I want, you know, that would be
Yeah.
nice.
Well, do you think, because do you think you're gonna start doing like concerts like with Sola where it's like that would be the entire track and then you can kind of design the sets and how it's gonna work? Like, are you gonna do that?
Yeah, yeah, we're working on that right now. And of
Okay.
course, there'll be smaller venues. It typically is with that kind of music, unless you're Taylor Swift or Harry Styles. And I'm not there yet. One day. But yeah.
Is there a musician you really want to partner with? Because you've partnered with some really big names
Hmm.
already. But is there someone you'd really love to do a song with?
Yeah, so actually, just the other day, I posted this medley that I kind of concocted of my favorite songs by The Killers. So I would love to sing with Brandon Flowers. I tried to get his attention the other day, but it didn't work. But yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah. No, that would be. Um, I want to go back a little bit. You mentioned growing up was hard. What was the
Mhm.
hardest thing about growing up? Because when we saw, like the behind the scenes of, I don't know if you probably remember, the Dream concert you did when you were like, I don't know, 10, 11, and they like filmed it, and you did Lovers on that one, you did Angel,
Mhm.
you did the Barbara Streisand duet where she was on the video. And we
Mhm.
did like the behind the scenes of that, and like you just seem to have the sweetest childhood, the sweetest, persona. It was like, I mean, you were just really, cute and sweet and innocent and but you're mentioning that your childhood was hard.
Mhm.
What was the hardest part about it? Was it the fact that you at 10 have got like all these eyes on you, or was it personally, like with your family, or because it seemed like, you know, and obviously, I guess this is always the case with news coverage and stuff, that you seemed really like you had a great family and everything was
Mhm.
working out great and they were all very supportive.
Well, they were, and I do have a wonderful family, but we all have our issues. And there were just experiences within my childhood before I was a singer that were scary and traumatizing. And, what you saw in the news stuff was real. We had such beautiful highs, but we had such terrible lows too. And
Yeah.
one day I'll work up the nerve to talk about that stuff. But after I was on America's Got Talent, and actually just before, I was exposed to a lot of very dangerous situations. I was working with a guy who had a local radio show, and we drove to Massachusetts. He turned out to be a convicted pedophile, and we'd spent days with this guy. I was alone with him, like
Mm.
this stuff. I was put in these positions, and um, they're scary things, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
and I think a lot of people have stories like these that are really, really formative of who we become in a negative way until we come through it and heal from it, and then it's made us stronger. But yeah, I think I have a lot to say, and I think that one day I want to be able to, but there's a lot of fear still there.
Yeah. No, and I can understand that. And also there are some things that are your story, and it's public platforms are not always the place to share. Um,
Yeah.
did you um when you were young, did you enjoy the opera music that you were singing?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I've always loved that stuff. I was raised with so many different sounds. Um, and so, I loved the opera. I loved the classical music. I used to drive all across the East Coast with my mom to try to be seen and become discovered. And we would listen to these classical songs on the radio, and I'd come up with narratives about what they were about in my head and just visualize it. So, I mean, it's always been a part of me.
Do you think that you are, and this might even be helpful for fans too, it's not that you don't like classical music. That's not what I'm hearing.
Mm.
It's that you want to explore and dive in to all kinds of music. And at the particular season of life you're in, the music you're singing, that's the music that's hitting home for you, not the opera
Mhm.
and the classical
Yeah,
music.
yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Yeah, that's the thing. And that's actually the challenge that I run into a lot with what I'm doing now is everyone's like, okay, so what genre should we shop this as? And I'm like, I don't know, do your best. I don't want to limit myself. For me, it's what comes out. And if it comes out as opera, then it comes out as opera. If it comes out as like a grungy rock song like Broken Things, then that's what it is. I
Yeah.
don't want to taint what it comes out as, or force it into some mold.
Has it been hard to find like management that's as supportive? Or have you always had like great management? Because I would think that there is always this tension too of, your management, your agent, they want to get the best for you so that you can get the most publicity out there. But you also have your own ideas and are like, this is what I'd like to do. Have you found that difficult, especially being younger and not having maybe as much, if we're thinking Taylor Swift and stuff, like she's got all this background, she's got all this power in some respect to be like, this is how I want to do it.
Mhm.
Um, do you have to fight for that sometimes, or do you find that your management is pretty like supportive and super like whatever wants to follow the trajectory that you have?
In the past, I've had management that said it's this way or no way. You're not going to
Okay.
make it if you don't do it this way. Who I'm with now is very, very much do you tell us what you're looking for and what you hope for, and we'll find a way to make it work. So I'm
Okay.
very lucky there.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah.
What do you find hardest about songwriting?
I would say my perfectionism. Like I'm such a perfectionist that if it's not exactly, you know, scratching the itch that I want it to, then I will sit there for hours and try to figure it out. Luckily, I've been learning enough about myself, um, that I'm knowing how to like handle myself when I get like that. Either step away from it for a second or sleep on it, and then all of a sudden the light bulb goes off. So yeah, that I would say is the main thing.
And then, I was thinking about this too. If you were not afraid of food,
Mhm.
and you could eat anything, what food do you like to eat?
I've never been a picky person ever. So, I would say probably like, unfortunately, and I'm gonna get hated on for this, but like steak. I've always loved steak. You'll see
Steak
interviews of
is
me.
good.
When I was a little girl and I was 10, people would ask me that. And that was before these issues had developed, and I would say steak. Steak is my favorite food. I do love steak, but I
Why
don't
is
know,
that a bad thing?
because there's a lot of very opinionated people in the world these days and cancel culture, and I could get canceled for saying I like steak these days. I don't know. That's something that's actually really scary about the industry these days. I mean, I could blink wrong and I'll get canceled.
Well, I was gonna say you went through a lot when you did Donald Trump's inauguration.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think the biggest issue with cancel culture is they're coming at it from a black and white perspective. There is no gray area to them. And if you, as an artist or a public figure, try to take a second and explain the gray area, you're called a liar. You're
Yeah,
called, suspicious. And sometimes that's valid, of course. There's so many possibilities for things, but it's just tricky to coddle cancel culture and, the way
yeah,
that people are these days with it. I know not everybody's like that, but it is a very scary, scary prospect. And when that happened to me, I felt like my whole entire world and all that I'd worked for was gone. I
mm,
mean, I hate the fact that my career um, lies almost solely on social media now. So when I was watching that, the numbers are going down and people are saying horrible things. And there's like death threats. And how could you do this when your sister is part of the LGBTQ community? And they didn't get it.
yeah,
So that was just like terrifying. And that also instilled a fear in me of doing what I felt was me at the time too. Because what
yeah,
if people hate me? What if they cancel me?
mm-hmm,
So I hate to sound cliche, but really it's like, why can't we just be nicer to each other? Why
yeah,
do we have to destroy lives this way and, hate on each other for so many things instead of acknowledging the facts we're humans, we're not perfect. Life is supposed to be learning lessons and developing from the consequence, but the consequence shouldn't be the end all be all of your life, you
yeah.
know? Not always, at least. I don't know.
That sounded
I don't
very
know.
strong to me. You didn't sound very fearful there.
No, I have had a lot of time to sort of think about these things and,
Yeah,
base them off my own life experience and just watch the way the world works. And there's some things where I'm so passionate about it that I can speak, but it's whenever it's about very deep, suppressed emotional things in me that I'm still struggling to figure out how to say. And the
yeah,
music has so far been the only way for me to say it.
yeah. And you mentioned it just being on social media. Is it because of the inauguration that you saw that decline, or was there because you just got older? Like, what have you seen been sort of this little, when you're mentioning the numbers going down, is it because of a particular event or?
Yeah, it was the inauguration mainly.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was like overnight, thousands of people were gone. And I look,
Wow.
yeah, I get it. I get it. I understand it. Um, Humans typically have that hair trigger reaction, but to not be open-minded to an explanation or, my reasoning for why I'd done that kind of sucks.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna ask you because in your song Consequences, I think it is Consequences, you say life does not have a word that to define it.
Mhm.
Um, like for you right now, can you define what life is, or do you find that in the season you're in, life is you can't. It's too hard. It's too complex. There's no way to really figure out what it's about.
I think it's sort of like the latter of what you said. I'm I say that because typically words have a specific singular meaning, and you can go in the dictionary and you can read the same meaning. Everyone can read the same thing. But
Yeah.
with life itself, it has such a different thing for everybody. And there are so many moving parts, and it's never the same thing once or multiple times. It's different over and over and over again throughout the entirety of it. And so, yeah, I mean, I pondered that and I thought that it was a cool sort of thing to include in the message of that song.
For you, what makes life worth living? Is it music?
It's the arts for sure. I would say that the arts and the people I love. Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you what do you find is, and maybe it's the same thing for you, is life beautiful because of the arts and the people you love?
Yeah. And well, I guess that's technically art. I mean, I find a lot of beauty in nature, um, and just, yeah, nature. I find there's so much art within it, and that just inspires what I can create with my own two hands. I think that also is what makes life beautiful for me.
Yeah.
There's interactions with humans that I can witness or experience that makes life beautiful. It's a lot of the smaller things. It's not like having a big house or a Bugatti or something, you know?
Yeah. No. Thank God, right? Because those things can, like you said with the fame, it's like overnight you can lose all these thousands of people, and then what do you do? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
Which
absolutely.
I'm guessing you're still growing in that the fame doesn't define who you are.
Hmm. Yeah. It absolutely is a challenge to sort of navigate. And it reminds me of when I was in high school, nobody embraced me. There was a small select group of people that were open-minded to me. And the thing is, you know, they saw me as this famous girl with such a perfectly privileged life, and they hated me for it. And they thought I was weird because I was also that person that was walking around with dyed hair and all that. Um, but I guess I'm at a point in my life where I really want to have the courage to talk to those people in my past and be like, "You're wrong. You do not know a single thing about what I have had to do or what I've gone through and how hard I work, you
Yeah.
know?" So yeah, I think that fame defined me to them. I don't think that it is the definition of me though.
What do you think is the definition of you?
I don't know yet.
You don't know,
Um,
that's what you're exploring.
no, yep. I
You know,
think
I was,
everybody is.
yeah. I wanted to ask you too, when you were younger, I know you mentioned, I don't know if it was in an interview or just in your time
Mhm.
somewhere, you were mentioning God and like a semi relationship you had with God. How has your journey with God been since growing now? So you've been through so much hard. You're exploring who you are now. I mean, what does God look like now in your life? Is he a thing anymore? Or for you, do you feel even betrayed? Like, I've experienced all this hard stuff and I'm not really seeing how religion's helpful here. Have you found it hard? I mean, what is your thoughts on that?
It's something that has never changed since I was little. It's still very much prevalent. Um, in the hard times, I knew that there was some sort of purpose. Um, or at least whenever I had to think about it from that angle, I knew that there must be some sort of purpose. Um, yeah, I've always been very, very grateful, and the practice has never changed from when I was 10.
Okay. So you still have, to some extent, belief in God, kind of.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what, Jackie, because I want to be respectful of your time. I know we were given an hour here. Um, what do you, if you could do anything in the world that you wanted to do, what would you pick? Just anything. You could travel somewhere, if you could meet someone, if you could do something, um, maybe apart from music, because we have talked about music a lot. What's just one thing Jackie would love to do if she had all the time and all the money and just anything?
Um, I would learn a bunch of different languages and become, you know, multilingual and travel the world and speak to everybody from all different cultures and everything with ease and understand their ways and, explain some of our ways and just, exist with other people and see the world. That would be really cool.
Wow. Can you imagine what your music would be like too if you got to do that?
Be so cool. So cool.
That that would be awesome.
Hmm.
But don't you speak some languages? Because I mean, some of your music has been in different languages.
I don't speak, I mean, I'm not bilingual.
Okay.
I I when I learn a song, I study the words themselves and I know the meanings of them. I know words here and there basically of a bunch of different languages, but I'm not fully able to speak an entire other language. And I feel really upset about it. I'm still trying to learn other languages. Um, I'm not giving up on that dream. That's a dream of mine is to be at least bilingual.
That's such a great ambition. And if you get to go, maybe, if you do one of your concerts in another country, even getting to sing a song
Mhm.
to that country in their language, yeah.
Exactly. Because I mean, it means the world to them. When you can finally relate to somebody else just through something as simple as words, it means the
Yeah.
world to them. They feel that much closer to you. And I want to be able to give that to my fans from other places in the world.
Well, Jackie, I want to thank you. I mean, it's been a delight to talk to you from seeing you so many years, but also it's been so cool to see your heart for wanting to connect with people and your desire with this album, Sola, to connect. So I do encourage fans, anyone who's listening, do take the time to listen. It's not a long EP. I think it's like 21 minutes, right? Or
Mhm.
26 minutes. It's not long. Um, and I, encourage you to do it and let Jackie know what you think. Post on her social media. Tell her, what song you really liked. Um, do not mention steak. I hope none of the listeners say anything about your steak. If they do, Jackie, I'm so sorry.
Oh man. You know what? I also encourage people to be honest when they tell me about what they think, because I mean, I've got thick skin with that stuff. I'd love to know.
Yeah, but the truth in love, right?
Yes. You don't have to be mean
Yes.
about it.
All right, Jackie, blessings on your day. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been great.
All right, bye, girl.